Hello and welcome to Three Things with JR, and happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. This episode is a bonus episode dropping on Father's Day. I am once again asking my sister to join me on this podcast so that we can talk lovingly about our dear dad, Eldon Michael Stoffel. And it's a long one. There's a lot to unpack here. So I'm not going to do a long intro. We're just going to get right into it. And I should say, you should probably stick around after the last drum solo because there's a little bit more. We just couldn't stop talking about Dad. All right, let's bring Aubrey on. Here we go. All right, so I am here with my sister. Hello, sister.
Hi, brother.
We never call each other that. I don't know why we just did that. um, that was weird. Welcome, Aubrey. How is as an update for everybody who listens to our Happy Mother's Day podcast, and you told us about life in Florida, which was what, like 7 weeks ago now? Or something like that. How has life been? Well, maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago. I think I've lost track of time completely. But how has your life?
Oh,
How has your life changed from Mother's Day 2020 to Father's Day 2020?
it's very different for sure. I think at that time I was either getting ready to or just had gone back to work, and now I'm about a month into being back at work. The biggest change at work is just having to wear a face mask for 8, 7, 8, 9 hours at a time.
Yeah.
It's about as horrible as it can get, but at the same time, I have no problem doing it. It seems like the right thing to do. That's the worst thing in my life right now, is having to wear a face mask for a long time. Otherwise, things are good as far as making money. It is getting a little scary lately, though, with the numbers rising in Florida. So I'm just going to head up there in a week and get out of here.
Yeah, come on up here to Albemarle County, Virginia, where our numbers are minuscule compared to what you guys got going on in Florida or where Mom is in Northern Virginia. And if we really want to get away from it, we can go join Dad in Emmitsburg, Iowa.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if they're in the double digits yet for the number of cases they have in Palo Alto County.
Yeah, remember Mom told me recently the numbers doubled. They went from 2 to 4.
Yeah. And good on you for wearing that mask. I am struggling with the mask thing. I'm really not into it, and I hardly ever have to put one on. I don't need one when I'm working from home. I don't even need one when I work at work. I'm in a basement room all by myself. I do not need to wear a mask there. If I go walking around the building, I got to wear one. When I stop at Starbucks, I got to wear one. And some of the other, like if I go grocery shopping, I might have to wear one then. And that's it. And I hate it. So the fact that you wear one all day at work and are willing to do it is kudos to you.
Well, there's a willing aspect and I don't have a choice or I don't have a job aspect. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, not that I'm saying that I would choose to not wear one, but we're all just walking around in the back of the kitchen just going, ugh. Like, it's just so frustrating to not be able to breathe normal. Like, Jesus.
It's interesting to think that in all the restaurants all over the world, every person that goes back in the kitchen is going, ah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then putting on a smiley, happy face when they come back out into the dining
No,
room.
we don't have to anymore.
Oh, that's right. You can
Smile at you for shit.
So there's no smiling going on behind these masks at any point.
Mostly not. I mean, we do have to, because you have to smile actually super big so that your eyes show your smile.
Yeah, you got to smile
Right.
with your eyes. All right, shall we talk about 3 things about Dad?
Yes.
Cool. So we'll start with thing 1, which is usually something deep and powerful and meaningful, and you're gonna go first.
Okay. So one of my very first memories as a kid was, and as I thought about this, I've actually had something come up that I wondered about. I remember sitting in the front seat of our car at like 3 or 4 as mom and dad cleared a spot on our new piece of land in Greene County, Virginia, where we were going to build a vacation country house. And I remember sitting there being annoyed that it was taking so long. I'd honk the horn every once in a while to remind them I was there. I don't remember you being there though.
Nope, I
Is this a
was.
memory of yours?
You are correct. I was not there for that.
Okay. I didn't think you were there. I just thought maybe you were there and I didn't remember.
Nope, that was the summer that I went to Granite City, Illinois to stay
Ah,
with our grandmother and our great grandmother. As Maggie was taking care of her mom as she had cancer and everything, I was out there for 6 weeks, and I went
okay.
out there right after we bought the piece of land in Greene County, and so I was not there when you guys went out there as owners of the land for the first time. And I've heard the story about how it took till like 2 in the morning before they actually had a place cleared enough to put up a tent and go to bed. And you sat in the car the whole time, and everybody was miserable.
Yeah, I remember sitting in the car in the front seat with the car running and the headlights on to give them enough light to do the clearing of the land for the tent.
Yeah.
And I can picture it in my head, very specific, like that memory, one of my first from when I was a kid. And just so many incredible memories of that house and so many things involved. I mean, the fact that it kind of seemed like that was dad's house, and not that the house in Falls Church wasn't his house, but that was dad's house. And mom didn't usually like to come as much, and it was kind of great to just have some time alone with dad because we were with her a lot during the week. And so I just have such incredible memories. And as I grew up, I remember just always assuming that I would inherit that house, that it would just be mine one day.
How could
And
you?
I remember as we, what,
How could you inherit that house and me inherit that house at the same time? Because I
one
always
of
assumed
us,
I was
right?
gonna get it.
Yeah. I mean, I just assumed it would stay in the family forever.
Right.
And I remember when dad decided to sell it, and I asked him, like, what are you talking about? You're going to sell the house like that's supposed to be mine one day. He's like, well, you can buy it. I'm like, no, that's not what I meant. I don't have any money. I think I was like 18 or 19 at the time. And yeah, I mean, I just assumed that that's what would happen. But once he explained, he just wanted to be free of all possessions to do whatever that meant. It made sense to me that he wouldn't want to hold on to a house that.
So it was really dad's place. Like we would go down there with dad like every weekend, every other weekend, couple times a month at least. And that those were some of the best times ever with dad.
Well, and the things that mom hated about it are some of the things that we loved about it. We didn't have to shower the whole weekend.
Nope.
That was exciting.
Yeah,
Just got in the lake,
especially in the
rinse off,
summer. Yeah, you just go swimming in the lake. Doesn't that count as a shower? Right?
pretty
When you go swimming, you don't need to take a shower for like 2 days after that.
That's not really true, but as kids, I bought
I,
into
I,
that
s- I still live by that principle to this day.
idea. Well, there was different rules down there. It wasn't drastically different, but it was just a little bit more relaxed. It was a little bit more like, I don't know, stuff like that, not having a shower. We just thought that was so cool. And I remember multiple things that, I mean, there was people that we met down there that made it kind of fun. It was just a whole different experience. It was like going to a whole different life for the weekend, and it was so cool.
I remember when I first started coming down there after I got back from Granite City, Illinois, and you guys had already been down there several times. You had met some of the locals, and I remember mom telling me, you're not going to believe this. There's this family that lives down the road. They've got 3 kids. Guess what their names are? Okay,
Oh, yeah.
the first one's Cricket. I'm like, really, Cricket? I'm like, yeah. And the next one, Bumper. I'm like, whoa. And the third one, Pee Wee. Cricket,
Yeah.
Bumper, and Pee Wee. I'm like, those are their names? They're like, yes, those are their names.
And they were so wild compared to the people that we knew. I remember getting in trouble with Pee Wee for like lighting sticks on fire one time.
Yeah. Oh, I got in trouble
Definitely.
with them several times.
Yeah.
uh,
They made it fun though, like an adventure.
And even once the house did have plumbing and, two full bathrooms, I mean, it turned into a real house. It wasn't always just primitive like that. Uh, then it really got fun because we'd have these huge family gatherings down there for like a weekend. We'd have like 20 people there. Aunts,
Easter.
yeah, aunts and uncles and cousins and brothers and sisters and all of that, and we'd bring friends with us, and we would it was the nice part about the house being out in the country, unlike our house in the city, was that you could turn all the lights off at night and it would be pitch dark inside. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face, so we could play murderer, which is a nice inside a house 100% dark game of hide and seek. For those that don't know murderer, that's what we used to play.
So much fun.
Yeah, and then
I mean, we
sardines.
could literally do an hour-long podcast about that house and all the fun that we had there. There's so many stories.
I think you're right. I think we actually could. Maybe we'll do that some other time.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
I think there's a lot more stuff we want to talk about with regards to Dad, so that we can save
Yeah.
the house in the country, maybe for its own show.
Yeah, because just one story after another keeps popping in my head, and we
Yeah.
can't tell them all. So
No,
we'll save those for another time.
I like it. So I'm going to do my thing now. Thing number one for me is really all of the time that I spent at work with Dad. It was something I got to start doing. I did it when I was like 3 or 4, almost, just for fun. I didn't know I was working. I thought I was just seeing Dad. But later on, starting around like 6th grade, every summer from 6th grade on throughout high school, I worked for Dad in the summers. I worked for him on spring break, on Christmas break. And then even after I graduated, I worked for Dad for about a year and a half, 2 years after high school. And I learned a lot working for Dad. First off, I learned that I do not want to be a house painter. Uh,
Yeah.
that this was not going to be my life's work. Dad was incredible at it. He was probably the best house painter in Washington, D.C. He was actually rated as such in Washingtonian Magazine, which got him so much business he had to turn people down. And his word of mouth was really all the advertising he ever needed to do, because all anybody ever had to say about Dad's house painting was that there is nobody better. And so what I also learned from him in working for him for so long was that you don't do a job half-assed. That was one of his phrases, and every time I would do a job half-assed, he would remind me, "You don't do that. You just don't do it. If you're gonna do a job, do it 100% all the way, as good as you can do it. If you do it half-assed, people will notice, and you don't want
Yeah.
that." He also taught me that it's not how fast you can do a job, but it's how good and consistently good you can do it. So he never professed to be the fastest painter in in Washington, but he was pretty much the best, and it really showed in his work. And so I've definitely taken to that. I've never tried to be the fastest at my work, at my job, but I do strive to be the best.
Yeah.
And so I definitely got that directly from my experience with Dad. I also learned that when you don't want to do a job, charge 3 times as much as you would normally. And then if you get the job, you'll either enjoy doing it because you're making tons of money, or if you don't get it, that's fine too, because you didn't want it in the first place.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And Dad got to work in some pretty cool places as a result of his work. I mean, he worked for a lot of very wealthy people in some of the nicest houses in the entire DC area. But then those same people own houses elsewhere, and he got to go painting houses in like Northern California wine country. He got to spend a couple weeks in Nantucket. We even spent 2 weeks painting a swanky apartment on 59th Street in New York City overlooking Central Park South. And that one is particularly special for me because it was way later. It was way after I'd graduated high school, had a wife, had a family, and Allison, my daughter, got to come with us and paint the house with us. So she got a taste of what it's like working with Poppy, my dad, and sort of seeing how he works and seeing what house painting is like and learning his trade a little bit. So that was a pretty special moment for me and Allison and Angela and Dad. And
Yeah.
it'll be one of my favorite moments of working for him through all of our time working together. But there's so many. We could also do I could do another hour podcast just talking about all the experiences I had working with Dad. I could go on and on.
Well, you know, that's funny because I would not be able to participate. I think he took me to work one time and brought me home and said to Mom, I kept telling her to do stuff and she kept telling me she had a better way to do it. I can't with her. Nope, not bringing her anymore.
No.
And I definitely did that. Tell me what to do and how to do it. And I'm like, but what if you do it this way? But what if this way is better? And he's like, no, that's not how this works. I'm teaching you something. This is not, I mean, now looking back on it, it's like, I bet even now he would say, good for you for having a mind of your own and thinking you have good ideas, but that's not really how life works. You got to put a little time in before you start sharing your own ideas on how to do things.
Yeah, till then, just do what the boss said to do.
Yeah. But you know, that reminds me of another time where he kept telling me to take the trash out, and he explained to me the difference between boys and girls. And he said, why don't you just say okay like Adam does and then just don't do it?
Yeah.
Rather than come up with 5 reasons why I can't right now.
Yeah, I was always very agreeable. Whether or not I actually got the job done was a different thing.
Yep.
But at least I didn't argue with him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it wasn't long after that. He's like, I got this book that I'm going to read. It's called, Dad, will you take me and Cheryl to the mall? Or it was something about, now I can't remember the name of it. Oh, Dad, will you leave me alone, but will you take me and Cheryl to the mall first? And it was all about what little girls are like. Leave me alone, but give me a ride to the mall. I was very cliche in that way.
I wonder if he went out and found that book, or did Mom give it to him, or what? How did that happen? I never knew that.
Yeah, I don't remember.
That's funny.
Yeah. I don't even know for sure if he read it or he might have just told me about it. Yeah.
All right, those are 2 pretty great, deep, meaningful thing ones. Before we jump into our musical thing twos, it's time for a drum solo. All right, we're back. A drum solo, and add another drum solo, and now we're going to talk about music. Thing number 2. I'm going to go first on this one, if that's cool with you, Aubrey.
Of course.
Thing number 2, music and Dad. Listening to music while working. I'm going to keep talking about working with Dad because it's a thing. It's a big thing. It's a big part of my life with Dad. So Dad always had these radios, and it was always surprising how long they would last because as a house painter, these radios are covered in drops of paint from ceilings, sanding dust when you sand the walls. It gets all over them. These things were the dirtiest, nastiest radios you'd ever seen, but they lasted for years because all they ever had to do was play the local oldies station. Whatever I don't remember with the frequency or the call letters, but it was the oldies station. And that's all Dad wanted to hear was, Yakety Yak, Don't Talk Back, and Great Balls of Fire, and Doo-Wop, and all those great songs from the 50s and 60s that he grew up listening to. That's what we listened to all day at work, and it was fantastic. In general, I don't think I ever want to do any work where I'm not listening to music. It's extremely rare that I'm doing any kind of work and I don't have music playing. And I think I got that from all of that time working with Dad. When we worked outside, we would wear Walkman and have headphones on so that we could walk around houses and listen to the music while we were painting. And then when we would be driving, if we weren't listening to like talk radio, we would be listening to Dad's mixtape, especially on those drives down to our house here in the country in Greene County. That's a good 2-hour drive. We had a mixtape that we would listen to, And we would listen to music in the truck as well, like on the way driving from Northern Virginia down to our house in the country. We would almost always listen to the exact same mixtape which Dad made from records that he had from Golden Oldies, and it was all the same songs in the same order every time. And I mean, we sang along with those songs, and just I can't imagine driving around without listening to music or working without listening to music. And it's thanks to our parents for both of those things. All right, so that's pretty much it for me for thing two and all about music and the Golden Oldies with Dad at work, in the truck. And I'm curious what Aubrey's got to say for thing number two, music with Dad. Go for it.
So, music with Dad, I always think of oldies. And I remember asking him, because he would call them oldies, asking him as, I wasn't super young, teenager. I said, what were oldies called before they were oldies? I remember him thinking about it. He's like, I think they were always just oldies. Like, okay. I feel like they should have been something else at some point, because now they're oldies. But I remember being in a car with Mom at one point, and some song came on the radio, and I started singing along, and she's like, how do you know this? I'm like, being in Dad's truck, like, this is a song they play. That one where it starts out with the motorcycle, the girl is watching the guy on a motorcycle, and there's a crash. What's that called?
Leader of the pack.
Yes, we knew all the words to that song.
Oh, yeah.
So I very much always associate, as far as music, with Dad as listening to oldies in his truck. But it also reminds me of the time when I think we lived on Lincoln Avenue. So Dad's truck was parked out front, and Mom's car was parked out front, and somebody broke into a bunch of cars on our street. And the funniest thing was, in Mom's car, they stole all of her tapes, all of her mixtapes, every tape she had, gone. They clearly rifled through Dad's oldies and left them right where they were.
Yeah,
I remember thinking that was so funny.
Wasn't quite their cup of tea.
Nope. But I also think about, we always sang in the car. Me, you, and Mom had no problem singing in the car, and Dad just wasn't a singer. And it was always that one song, Turn the Page, that he'd be like, I'll sing this one. Turn the page. I know this song. Turn the page.
And then at the end, when Bob Seger starts going, oh, Dad would go, oh, oh. Turn the page.
Yeah.
Dad was a really good singer
awesome.
on that song. Very, very memorable.
You just got to know your role.
Yeah. I remember, wasn't it years later that we heard he was singing in like the choir at church, or singing in, maybe not the choir, but actually getting up and standing up at church and actually singing out loud. Like, he told us he does that now at church. I was like, really?
I went. I didn't believe him. He was so adamant about refusing to sing. I didn't believe it was true. I went to that church service. He sang. Yep.
Good for Dad.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need something to move you, to make you really want to have something to sing about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on. So Golden Oldies, it's a theme with our music from our dad. We both have very fond memories of that kind of music along with Dad. You ready to move on to thing number 3?
Sure. Should I go first?
Yeah, I think you should go first.
All right. So something absurd is the theme of thing number 3.
Yeah.
And all I could think of is that Dad just encouraged us to burp and fart and do it loud and be proud. And I'm cool with that. I always thought that was funny and that was great, and I did it. I participated. We would crack up about it. I always thought it was, just something we did.
Yeah.
Luckily, I did figure out at some point when that's appropriate and when it's not. And I remember being about 19 or 20, and I was in the kitchen with Dad, and I just burped or farted really loud. And he just goes, "Do you wonder why you don't have a boyfriend?" And I'm like, oh my gosh, you taught me to do that. If there's any question as to me doing that and it being the reason I don't have a boyfriend, it's your fault. I don't do that around boys though. I do that in front of you because I know you think it's funny. So that always stuck out, and I still I feel like probably to this day would be embarrassed by you or dad out in public because you'll just burp or fart like it doesn't matter anywhere you are. I don't know if you guys ever hold it in. I'm very glad to have realized though as I got older when that's appropriate. Still though, I am single, so I don't know. Might add a point. Never been married. I don't know. Hope that's not why.
I don't think that can possibly be it.
No, I'm just kidding. I know that's not why.
And I gotta say,
But
I will burp pretty much anytime, anywhere, without any shame. However, I do hold the farts in at least until I can make them silent or come out later if I'm not in the appropriate circumstances to rip a fart. Uh,
that's good.
but I will say I am a little bit more liberal about when I think it is appropriate to fart than you. But burping, that's a whole different thing. Like nobody should be offended by a burp. They don't stink like farts do. They are awesome. Burps are great. Farts are almost as good.
Well, and actually, that reminds me. Remember when we were kids and we figured out that I could make myself burp, and you were so jealous because I wasn't. I didn't really care that much. I thought it was so cool because you loved it so much. But I could literally just make myself burp at any time.
I have always been jealous of your ability to do that. Can you do it for me right now?
I have not tried in probably 15, 20 years, but I can give it a shot.
It's probably something you can just you can just do.
Anytime I want to.
Can you still burp the alphabet?
And I don't think that was the funniest thing I did. This was the funniest thing I did. Ribbit. Did I do it right?
Yes.
Ribbit. Yeah. Burping a ribbit. My friends were so entertained by that when I was younger.
As well they should be.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I still wish I could do that.
I wish I could teach you.
Yeah. I think some people's throats just work that way and some people's don't.
It's really hard to explain how to do it. It's just a natural thing I can do.
Yeah.
One of my many talents that has kept me single all these years.
Oh man, that's a good thing 3. That's probably the silliest or funniest or most absurd one we've had yet.
Yeah.
My thing 3, I had to go through a bunch of things before I got to my thing 3. Like for example, I was maybe thinking I might talk about the time Dad paid me money to cut off the rat tail I had been growing on the end of my hair in my back of my head. But then I thought, no, not that one.
Well, he did something similar to me.
Oh, yeah?
I don't know if you remember, but I used to shave the bottom half of the back of my head.
Yeah.
I shaved it and would have long hair over it, and he paid me to stop doing that. Yep.
So I get the rat tail one because he could see the rat tail, but what you just described sounds like something he wouldn't even see unless you showed it to him.
No. I would put my hair up in a ponytail on purpose so that everyone could see it. I thought it was so cool.
Well, that's how you raised the price, really.
Yeah.
How much did he pay?
I think he offered me 20 and I said no, and then he offered me 50 and I did it.
Wow, man, I only got $10 for cutting off my rat tail. Damn.
Gotta hold out.
Yep. And then I was thinking I might do how Dad used to, instead of saying far out, he would say farm out, man. Or instead of right on, he would say right arm. Then I thought, no, not that. And then I was thinking maybe I would talk about how he used to let us set off fireworks when we were down at the house in the country until Mom found out. But then I thought, no, I probably won't do that one. Then I was thinking about the time he told me a joke, but he only told it to me on the condition that I wouldn't tell Mom. And the joke was silly. It was one of those saying goodbye jokes. Like he said, he's like, I'm gonna make like a hockey player and get the puck out of here.
Yeah.
Right. And he's like, but you can't tell Mom that one. You said don't tell Mom. I told Mom the next day. because I thought it was the most clever thing I had ever heard. I thought it was hilarious. I was only like 9 when this happened. Um, but I told Mom the next day, and I don't think Dad was happy that I did that.
Well, I used to be so confused for a while why he would get home from work and he'd sit there for a while and then go, I'm gonna go shake a tower, or I'm gonna go shake a tit. And I'm like, I just thought these were phrases for going upstairs. And it was years later that I found out that he was just swapping letters. And he meant take a shower or take a shit. I didn't know. I just thought they were funny little quirky phrases, Dad said.
He sometimes he would say, "I'm gonna go shit, shower, shave, and shampoo."
Yep.
That
And
was
actually, I think I was like 8 or 9 when I dressed up as a house painter, basically dressed up as Dad for Halloween. And Mom was like, this is the only time you're allowed to say this. When Dad gets home, you're going to say, hey, welcome home. I'm getting ready to go shit, shower, and shave. Dressed as him.
nice.
Yep.
And then I was thinking maybe I would talk about how we had a surprise birthday party for Dad, and the only thing he wanted for his birthday was more underwear because he was running low on briefs. And the only thing he got for his birthday was underwear, even though we had this huge party with like 50 people. His family flew in from Iowa, and we totally surprised him with it. And then all he got was underwear, and he was so happy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think didn't we like have people put it in all different types of like containers so that the presents were all different sizes,
Yes,
like
different
stuff
size.
jars full of underwear, stuff
Yep.
like that.
Yep. No,
Yeah.
people got so creative on that because all the gifts look different, but every time you open it, more underwear.
Yeah. I remember that.
And he loved it. That's really what he wanted. He's like, I don't have to go buy
Yeah.
underwear for like 4 years now.
He might still have that
He,
underwear.
he very well might. So I was thinking, all of those things, no, those are not my crazy, silly, absurd thing. What I want to talk about is how one time, a couple years ago, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago now, actually, Dad and I went on a trip to New York City with our cousin Maurice. And we went up there. We brought our bikes with us, but the plan was to stay at Maurice's girlfriend's house, which we did. She lived in in Greenwich Village. We stayed at her house, and then we went out bike riding, and we ended up riding our bikes around until like 3 or 4 in the morning, and we didn't even realize how late it was. We were just riding all over New York City, having a great time. We went back to her apartment, went to bed, basically did it again the next couple of days, and then we went home. About a month later, I called Dad, or I saw Dad, and I said, "Hey, I have this idea. Remember when we were riding in New York City and how much fun that was? I'll bet we could go to New York City without plans to stay anywhere. We could probably find places to sleep, like in parks or wherever, and just do that. Like almost like we're homeless or something. Except we'll have our bikes, we'll have a backpack, and what do you think?" He's like, "I can't believe you're saying this because I had the exact same thought." We
Nice.
both thought, let's do that. Both came up with the exact same premise, and we completely on our own, and we decided to do it. And sure enough, we did it 2 times. We called it Home Free in New York City, where we would get on a bus in D.C. with our bikes and our backpacks, get to New York City, ride all around until we finally got tired. So it'd be like 3 o'clock in the morning. We would find a park bench in some park or some little grassy spot in Central Park where they couldn't see you, where we felt safe. And we'd get a couple hours of sleep, and then we'd go riding around some more. We'd stop and get breakfast. We rode out to Coney Island. We rode the roller coasters out there. We ate hot dogs. We rode the subway back into the city. We did get pretty. It was in the summertime, so we got horribly stinky and sweaty from riding around all the time without a place to go shower. So we ended up taking a bath in a fountain at Washington Square Park, and a couple other places where they had fountains. I mean, we loved it so much that we did it twice. And I don't know anybody else, literally, I don't know anybody else in my life who would do that with me. Yet him and I had the exact same idea to do the exact same thing, and we did it. And I can't think of anybody else I'd rather have done it with than Dad. I don't know that we'll ever get to do it again. It's probably two and done. But I think about that a lot and how much I would like to go do it again and how much I loved doing that with Dad. And it was a crazy thing to do. Most people,
Yeah.
when they hear me describe it, they're like, wait, you did what? Where did you sleep? And we slept in some weird places, but they were all parks. They were all places where we felt that there was the right amount of light, the right amount of safety. And there was two of us there. And you know, we happen to be white males. So we have that gives us the power to do a lot of things that a lot of other people just can't do. Uh,
That is true.
just because of of what we look like. We're not somebody that people were going to mess with for whatever reason. And so it was pretty great. And we absolutely loved it. Home free in New York City.
Well, two things I just thought of. One, I think that's awesome that you can acknowledge and admit your white male privilege and
Yeah.
know that that's just a thing
Yeah.
because it's just a thing, you know? I couldn't do it just being a woman, you know? It's
Right.
just too dangerous. I do remember you guys telling me about it and being so jealous of how fun it sounded. But then you asked me if I wanted to go play homeless in New York, and I said, no, I'm good. I don't want to play that game. That does not sound fun to me. It sounds like such a great time. I'm really glad you guys enjoyed it. Not something that I would even enjoy or want to do, but that's okay. Mom and I go do fun things without you guys too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not quite as adventurous, but I'm sure just as fun.
How long do you guys go before you shower in a park?
No, we don't ever go more than a day without a shower. That's a thing we have in common. While I enjoyed it as a kid, not having to shower, not something I do lately.
Yeah. You grew out of that. Also, the burping and the farting.
Yeah,
Good for you.
thank you. Look how far it's gotten me.
Yeah. Well, I'd say you're very successful at everything you've done. So,
That's true. And yes, I don't absolutely don't measure my success by whether I've gotten married. In fact, it's kind of funny that I never I thought when I was younger that I wanted to get married, but realized as I've gotten older that that's no longer a desire of mine. In fact, I very specifically don't want to get married.
would you say, I just thought of this as you were saying that. It occurs to me that right now, and for a number of years now, mom, dad, you, and me have all not been married. And I would venture to guess that in many ways, all four of us have been happier unmarried, maybe even the happiest we've ever been in our lives, like just personal enjoyment of life. Uh, Maybe the happiest as we are all unmarried.
Well, I've never been married, so I got nothing to compare it to. But I see what you're
So
saying.
well, you're still not married, so it still counts.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy all the time.
Yeah. You've never not been happy.
Right. That's not true, but I do absolutely feel like never having gotten married has been the right path for me. And yeah, no regrets when it comes to that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that I have anything more to say about that.
Yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up. That's our fun stuff to say about Dad.
I think we should throw a drum solo on this thing and call Happy Father's Day done. Happy Father's Day to Eldon Michael Stoffel, our dad.
Yeah, from me too. All right, so I got one more little story that if you want to throw this in, you can. Which it's so funny the way I didn't really intend for it to happen this way, but I had this one thought that I was going to include and didn't. But I remember when I was younger and I asked Dad just based on how life works and my observation of what other people were doing. I was probably in my 20s and I was like, Dad, so, and at this point he was, single and working on his own, not making a lot of money, plenty to support himself. But I was like, if I get married, and it might have been right after I found out how much one of my friends' weddings cost that had me thinking along these lines.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Dad, if I get married, are you gonna pay for my wedding? Because if I understand correctly, that's how it works, father of the bride and all. He just looked at me for a minute and goes, depends on who you're marrying. Like, okay. And at the time, I took it kind of personally, but looking back on it, that was a very smart answer.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. There's no obligation for dad to pay for a wedding he does not believe is going to be the right thing to do, right?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it just goes along with the fact that, like, at the time, I just thought I was supposed to get married because that's what people do. I thought your father paid for it. And yeah, now that I've
You were just
grown up,
checking to make sure that that's the
yeah,
case, right?
is this how it works? But I've come to realize that no, not, your dad doesn't necessarily need to pay for your wedding, and you shouldn't necessarily get married.
I
So,
so I got one little thing. I'm not sure we should include it here either, and I'll make the decision when I go back and listen and do my final edits. But one last thing about dad was that he always insisted that whenever possible, we would sit down and have a real meal together. Right. And this was always difficult to do because mom would be playing on 3 or 4 softball teams. I would be playing in Little League or doing something after school at school. You were playing on stuff, doing stuff like softball or whatever. We all had things going on in the evenings, which was when dad was home from work. And I think he got used to having a real meal as a kid. And he thought that this was what his family should be doing, but it just didn't work out all that often. So, whenever possible, dad would insist we'd have a real meal where we all sit down at the table. There we go. We'd have a home fixed meal. We'd all sit down and talk and just have a family dinner. And I think you and mom and me always kind of preferred going out to eat.
yeah.
Dad really didn't prefer going out to eat. It was more expensive. There was the whole getting cleaned up after work and having to go back out and pay for it and all of that. Not that he didn't enjoy it, but he didn't enjoy paying for it, and I think he definitely preferred staying home and having a real meal. And
Yeah.
the part about this that I'm not sure I want to include is remember that time when dad flew back to Iowa for like 2 weeks and none of us flew back with him? Like we still had school and stuff like that, and he was gone. And we realized about halfway through that we were going out to eat every night, even though we didn't really need to. And it was one of us. It might have been me that said, "This is almost like if his dad were dead." And I think mom thought, we shouldn't think of this that way. This is not the right way to think about this. But
But I think it kind of goes along with when we were down at the house in the country. It's like, this is what my life would be like if mom were
if
dead.
mom were dead,
You know, it was never in like a malicious, I wish she was dead kind
no,
of
no,
way.
no,
It's
not
like,
at all.
at least we know we would be okay if that person wasn't here. Life would be all right. I don't think that's a bad way to look at it.
All
It
right,
was
cool.
definitely not said in a morbid way.
No, I was not wishing dad was dead. I was just
Right.
observing that when dad's not around, we go out to eat more, and I kind of like that.
Yeah.
But if when he's around, that doesn't happen so much. And so uh, when he's not around, like when he's dead, he won't be around. So we'll go out to eat more. That'll be the silver lining. The only good thing to come out if dad were dead, that would be the only good thing about it.
You know, that reminds me of when we would go out to eat with dad, he would always want to go to a buffet. That was his big thing.
Yes.
But I've told you, right, that I didn't realize until I was literally an adult that it's not actually a rule at a buffet that you have to eat everything on your plate before you go back for more. He taught us that, and the idea behind it I get now. It was, don't take a bunch of something if you're not sure if you're going to like it, because you have to eat everything on your plate. You're not going back for another plate till you finish what you got.
Yeah.
And he tried to make us understand it. I would say, but it's mac and cheese. I love mac and cheese, but this kind's gross. I don't want it. I want more. But yeah, I thought that was actually a rule at the buffet until I was an adult.
Yeah, if you're going to be a picky eater at a buffet with dad, just get a little bit the first time and then go back
Yep.
for more if you find out you like it. Ah,
Yeah.
good stuff. Yeah, I think we should probably throw both of those on the end. So that's the payoff for listening all the way to the end, is you got to hear those 2 bonus stories.
Yeah, I like it.
Cool. I think that's how it'll end right there.